At Beecher's Hope, John Marston is seated at the table sipping coffee. Arthur Morgan strides into the room, a wild gleam in his eyes.
John, I have a plan.
Arthur, we've been through this. No more plans. We're not outlaws anymore.
Arthur pulls out a wrinkled map littered with illegible markings and random doodles. He slams it down on the table.
We can do it, John. One more score.
You sound an awful lot like... Never mind.
John looks at the map, squints, and looks up at Arthur.
Arthur, this is just a map of St. Denis with scribbles all over it.
Arthur leans over the table, grinning.
Exactly.
John just stares at Arthur, clearly baffled.
Arthur, you've drawn a stick figure robbing what looks like a saloon. We're not doing that.
Arthur, undeterred, points at a stick figure next to the saloon.
That's you, John.
John rubs his temples, trying to keep his patience.
No, Arthur, we're not playing in any scores.
Just think about it, John. We could...
Arthur, I have a family now. I have responsibilities. This isn't us anymore. I've left it behind. You should too.
Arthur squints at John.
You're a coward.
John sighs, leaning back in his chair. He looks at Arthur with concern.
Arthur, maybe you need to see a doctor again about that congestion.
The next day, John is saddling his horse, getting ready for a ride to Blackwater. Arthur is lingering nearby, holding a bandana.
I may help you with that, John. Do you need someone to ride into town with you? I reckon I can help you. If you're going into town, that is...
Why are you so keen on going into town, Arthur?
Arthur shrugs, trying to appear nonchalant.
Just thought you could use the company, is all.
John gives Arthur a questioning look, but continues to settle his horse. As John turns away, Arthur seizes the opportunity and quickly tries to tie the bandana around John's neck, then swiftly pulls away, staring at Arthur in confusion.
What are you doing?
I thought it might be dusty on the road.
John squints at Arthur, clearly not buying the excuse.
Dusty, Arthur, what's going on?
I thought maybe if we're in town, we could...
John raises an eyebrow, waiting for Arthur to finish the sentence. Arthur mumbles something incoherent and tilts his head, trying to catch Arthur's words.
What was that, Arthur?
I thought we could scope out the bank.
John sighs deeply, pinching the bridge of his nose.
Arthur, we're going to town for supplies, not to plan a heist.
But John...
No, Arthur, no scores, no heists. We're out of that life.
Fine, little Johnny Marston. Have it your way, but I'm still coming with you.
John sighs and relents as Arthur hops up on the wagon to ride into Blackwater. John and Arthur ride into town, John's eyes constantly flickering towards Arthur, wary of his intentions. They pull up outside the general store.
Arthur, you just wait here. Promise me you won't do anything.
Scout's home. John, I'll wait here and make sure no one tries anything funny.
John narrows his eyes, not fully trusting Arthur's words.
Just stay here!
Arthur nods, watching as John enters the store. Arthur quickly gets off the wagon as soon as John is out of sight and starts to pace down the street, glancing at the bank across the way. Inside the general store, John is at the counter paying for the supplies. Suddenly, a shrill whistle cuts through the air, followed by the thundering sound of boots. Who turns to the store's window, eyes wide. Lawmen are sprinting towards the docks, guns drawn. John rushes out of the store, leaving his supplies behind.
Damn it, Arthur!
John looks around frantically. The wagon is still parked where he left it, but Arthur is nowhere to be found. John fights his way through the crowd towards the docks. He catches sight of Arthur surrounded by lawmen, hands in the air. Arthur spots John and begins waving.
Hey, John!
John sighs, rubbing his face with his hand.
Every damn time!
Lawman, guns drawn, surround Arthur. The leading lawman steps forward, a stern look on his face.
Surrender now, you fool.
John rushes over to the lawman.
That feller is my friend. What did he do?
Your friend tried to steal the fur. He got cuffed before he could even board.
John turns to look at Arthur, a mixture of exasperation and disbelief on his face.
A ferry. Arthur, really?
Thought it might come in handy for a getaway.
John sighs deeply, shaking his head.
We're not planning a haste, Arthur.
John turns back to the lawman.
I apologize for him. He's not well.
The lawman looks at Arthur, then back at John.
Just get him out of here.
John nods, walking over to grab Arthur by the arm and lead him away from the docks and the gathering crowd. But as John reaches for Arthur, Arthur suddenly leaps into a nearby rowboat. John watches from the dock as Arthur seems to be putting in a lot of effort for very little progress. The boat barely moves, drifting aimlessly.
Jesus Christ! I've seen turtles move faster than that.
Arthur is oblivious to his lack of speed.
You can't catch me. Idiots!
The lawmen standing by the dock shake their heads in disbelief, holstering their guns.
Ain't worth it. Let him wear himself out.
John watches Arthur still making little headway. Just as Arthur seems to make some progress, a wave rolls in, pushing him back towards the shore. As his rowboat gets washed back towards the shore, John is waiting for him on the dock.
How's your plane going, Arthur?
In his haste to respond, Arthur loses one of his oars to the water. Unfazed, he doubles down and paddling with the remaining oar, which only serves to send him spinning in a circle.
Just a minute, set back. John!
John continues to watch Arthur's fruitless efforts. He sits down on the dock.
Father Morgan, an infamous outlaw. Reduced to paddling in circles.
Arthur glances at John as he continues to spin in his little rowboat.
I think I'm getting the hang of it, John.
John shakes his head.
Take your time, Arthur.
An hour later, John is still seated on the dock, yawning and rubbing his eyes. Arthur, meanwhile, is still in the rowboat, barely having moved from his spot. He's panting heavily, clearly exhausted.
Can we please go home now, Arthur?
Arthur doesn't respond, instead leaning back in the boat and promptly passing out from exhaustion. John watches as Arthur's boat drifts back towards the dock. Guided by the gentle waves, he waits until it's close enough, then stretches out to grab the boat. Despite his inability to swim, John manages to secure Arthur's boat to the dock. He peers in, seeing Arthur fast asleep.
You're an idiot, Morgan.
John secures the boat to the dock, then stands up, glancing around the now quiet docks. He gives one last look at Arthur before shaking his head and walking away, leaving Arthur to his nap. Later that night, John is on the porch, enjoying the quiet of the night. Suddenly, the sound of loud, hungry footsteps echo in the distance. Arthur appears, sunburnt and fuming.
You left me, John?
You were taking a nap in a boat, Arthur.
Arthur storms up to the porch, seething.
Remember when I rescued you from Sitka Penitentiary? John, you could have at least done the same for me.
John steps forward, pointing a finger at Arthur.
I was in prison, Arthur. You were taking a little nap in a child's rowboat. Those are very different things.
Well, next time, I'm leaving you behind Marston.
Sure, Arthur, next time.
John and Abigail are lying in bed as John is regaling Abigail with the day's events, both of them laughing quietly. Suddenly, a muffled sound comes from under the bed. Abigail looks at John, eyebrows raised. John sighs, rolling his eyes.
Arthur, stop poking your sunburn.
Why is he sleeping under her bed again?
I sure as shit don't know. Season's comfortable down there.
They settle back into bed, the sound of Arthur occasionally punctuating the otherwise quiet night.
The end.
Gosh, damn it.